Hello, glad to have you with us today on the program Let's Talk on Love World Plus, our discussion program where we look at pertinent issues in society, in Nigeria, in Africa, and the world over. My name is Zoe Okafor, and today our discussion will be focusing on the Nigerian judicial system. Now, recent occurrences in the Nigerian judiciary under the current Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Aloma Mariam Mukhtar, has confirmed in a big way that it may no longer be business as usual. Now, since the assumption of office as Chief Justice, she has demonstrated the will to restore public confidence in the judicial arm. The height of public distrust in the system was once again manifested a couple of months ago, given the public disappointment that greeted the judgment of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory sitting in Abuja in the John Yakubu Yusuf police pension fraud case. Now, this was despite the fact that the decision had a legal basis. Now, these are just some of the things we are going to be looking at today, and in today's discussion I am joined by Adeniyi Odunsi, who is a legal practitioner, a consultant. He also is a public policy analyst. You're welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you, Zoe.
Okay, so we're basically looking at reforms. We're looking at strengthening Nigeria's judiciary reforms. Now, first of all, when we say reforms, I want us to be very clear what we are looking at here. When we say reforms in the judicial sector, are we looking at a change of laws, a change of the constitution, a change of the way the law is administered? What exactly are we referring to?
When you say reforms, we're actually talking about trying to make things better, which presupposes, of course, that things have not been right with the judiciary. Now, this has to do with changing, getting the point, making things better when it comes to the administration of justice. We have laws and we have judges that administer these laws. So when we say reforms, what we're trying to do is probably change some laws that have to do with how it's been, the laws are being administered. And then, of course, we're talking about the personnel, the judges. We're flushing out the bad ones and getting the right people into the system. Okay. Because the system is only as good as people who operate it.
Okay. So as someone who is in that field, can you give us a brief overview of how judicial reforms have been so far? Now, I'm asking because I do remember that before the former Chief Justice of Nigeria retired, that is Dahiru Mustafa,
yes.
We know that he did submit some bills to the National Assembly.
Did that, yes.
How far has that gone?
Well, they're still working on it. I think it's past the second reading or something like that. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it's a very good thing that we're trying to do now. We all know that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man, and over the last few years, we've had quite a lot of problems with the Nigerian judiciary. Now, this didn't just start, of course. If I may go back a bit, you'll realize that we had the judicial system right from when Nigeria started in 1960. Even before then, of course, but we had the British in charge. Appeals, for example, had to go to the Privy Council, which was like the Supreme Court. And we had very few Nigerian judges. We had white judges, British citizens at that time. There was not too much talk about corruption then. Now, of course, we started off in 1960 and the Nigerians took over. Since then, the major problems we had in those days was with the military coming in. And then they would come in, suspend the constitution, and then, the executive and the legislature would be one, because the military would make the laws. So then the judges had a big problem trying to preserve the independence of the judiciary, because the khaki boys wanted to dictate everything that was going on. We had a few brave judges who would not want to toe that line, but there was very little they could do. I remember during the Abacha era, I was at the Court of Appeal, we got a judgment. Abacha had seized some tons of wheat at the port. It was supposed to be, it belonged to a gentleman from Niger. So he was transporting it from Lagos to Niger. He brought it in, but because, you know, they're landlocked, he had to come through the Lagos port. But for whatever reason, Abacha said it was prohibited, it was banned. But the guy he got the necessary permits from the relevant Nigerian agencies, and he wanted to move this wheat from the port to Niger. Now the government said no, it was banned. So he got us, we went to court, we got a judgment up to the Court of Appeal level. Now for us to go to the port to move the wheat, we got there, found soldiers, armed, guarding the wheat. So I remember then we went back to court to complain. And my boss then, Professor Adisa, he was telling the appeal court judges, we have a judgment, we can't enforce it. And they said, Professor, we've given our judgment, what else do you expect us to do? So we had cases like this. Okay. Laws being disregarded and things like that in those days. And then we came to a time that should have been a much better time. We could have seen a much, much improvement. The politicians came in and we expected things to be better, the independence of the judiciary. But President Obasanjo, of course, being an ex-military man, still continued with some of his things. Court judgments were not being obeyed or respected until Yaradua came in, and Yaradua made everybody realize he was going to respect the rule of law. And then, of course, President Jonathan has, to a large extent, followed suit. So we've been trying to reform all the while, but what we are seeing today is largely a reflection of what is happening in society. Okay. These judges are not from another country. The people in charge, they're all from Nigeria. So it's a reflection of the state of the country, really.
Okay. Now we're still looking at strengthening Nigeria's judicial reforms. And as part of the reforms, we've seen the suspension of some high court judges for judicial misconduct, and I'm sure that in a way also has sent some signals to certain persons to know that this could actually happen and that things are not going to continue the way that they have been. Now, do you think that that in a way strengthens it, and is it just removing those judges? Do you think that that in itself will greatly strengthen those reforms?
It would have or should have, but of course, Nigeria is it's not like any other country in the world. Everything is politicized at the end of the day, and that's what's going on now. Okay. Now, these two judges were supposed to have been removed for corruption. At least that's what the NJC said. Nigerian Judicial Council, that's what they said. It was supposed to have been corruption. Justice Charles Achibong, for example, of the Federal High Court, had a running battle with some senior advocates, 5 of them. He said some quite uncomplimentary things about them, about their competence. Okay. And even the chairman of the NBA then, Daudu, actually walked out on him. And a lot of lawyers had complaints. I had cause to appear before Justice Achibong, so I know his temperament. Now, Justice Achibong has, of course, written to the president challenging his removal. Now, the unfortunate thing is that it appears he wasn't given fair hearing. Okay. Unfortunately, again, the CJN, the Chief Justice, in her letter to the president, actually said Justice Achibong had a hearing. The 3 gentlemen, the panel that was supposed to look into his case, that they actually heard him. Now, we understand that Justice Achibong was not even in the country. So, how do you look at that. Now, the president, of course, listened to the CJN and the NJC and removed him. He was compulsorily retired. Now, that has left a rather sore taste in the mouth about it. If the NJC will not respect the rule of law, who will? A few lawyers have been against Justice Achibong's removal. Now, it's stated that it was for corruption, but the things that are being said, the reasons don't have anything to do with corruption. It's more about competence. It's more about maybe the senior advocates, very senior ones, are behind it.
Okay, maybe like a sort of a witch hunt, for instance.
Like a witch hunt. I wouldn't say they don't have good grounds. I wouldn't say that, but at least if you're going to remove a judge, then do it the proper way. The other fellow, the other judge again, what we're hearing again about that is that he gave a decision about this Oyinlola's case, and that the CJ was not happy about it. I don't know how far that is true, but when you start hearing things like that, and we're talking about judicial reforms, then where do you go from there?
Okay. All right. One of the incidents that really made Nigerians be a little concerned as regards justice, getting justice, was the incident, of course, we all know about the Abuja Judge Abubakar Talba of the Abuja High Court, who allowed a convicted pension thief, John Yusuf, to pay 750,000 naira as a fine and walk away free after he was convicted. Now, what is your take on all that? And we did hear subsequently that they were going to look into that matter to see, if what they're going to do about it. Now, what is your take on how everything happened? Of course, he was within the confines of the law, of the Constitution, to do what he did. But in the light of these reforms we're talking about, really, what's your take on that?
Well, it's said that the law is an us. And you have to look at the environment with which the law operates. Now, you find in countries like the United States or Britain, if any fellow is found to have embezzled £1,000, $10,000, it's a big deal. Now, in Nigeria, it's not like that. I've had people say, look, corruption is part of a system. Why don't we just institutionalize it and say, look, corruption goes with doing business, because we can't get rid of it. There are people who think like that already. Now, you have a case in which, like I said, judges are human beings. They stay in the same environment with us. And a judge has a window in which he could be neither black nor white. He could be gray. And he decides to take it. Now, unless you can have had evidence to say that he collected some bribe, he's in the clear. So instead of all this talk about, well, he shouldn't have done this, he shouldn't have done that, give us some hard evidence. Okay. If you can prove that he collected some money or there was some sort of inducement, then of course you have good grounds. The prosecution, which is the government, can, and I will be surprised if they haven't even gone on appeal. The fact that a judge, it's a high court, you can go to the Court of Appeal, you can go to the Supreme Court. So if you're not satisfied with what a judge has done, go to the higher court. You have 3 judges sitting in the Court of Appeal. It's not as easy to bribe 3 judges, although again, I can't really say that anymore, based on what has happened in the past. So you see, we all feel bad about it. It can only happen in Nigeria and things like that, but we're talking about the law. Give us evidence as to what transpired. Since what he did, he didn't break the law. He didn't misinterpret the law. So if you're saying he was induced to take this road, then give us evidence to say this is what he did, then that will be fine.
Okay. All right, we're still looking at strengthening Nigeria's judiciary reforms, and I'm still talking with Adeni Odunsi, who is a legal practitioner, a consultant, as well as a public policy analyst. Now, very recently, the Lagos State Governor, Babatunde Fashola, said, or rather he called on the National Assembly to cede the powers for judicial reforms to the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and he said that in doing that, that will sort of speed up the process. Now, in your opinion, do you think that that power should be solely vested on one individual, being the Chief Justice of Nigeria, to handle such reforms? Do you think that is good for reforms, for only one person to handle that?
Not good for not one person, but the judiciary itself, the Judiciary Council, of course the CJ as the head.
As the head of the council.
Of a council, not just an individual, because nobody is perfect. Now, Governor Fashola was able to say this because they've done it in Lagos State.
Yes.
And it's worked wonders, to a large extent, because I operate in Lagos State, so I know what's going on there. We have, we had an AG, Professor Shibaju, a few years back. He was with Tinubu. Now, an excellent jurist. And so he was able to bring a lot of reforms into the Lagos State Judiciary. Things are by far better in Lagos State. The administration of justice, the system is by far better in Lagos than any other state in the country. Because we got someone, very honest man, who decided to take the bull by the horn, and he did wonders. Now, Mr. Ekpaya, who took over from him, actually worked with him at this time. So the reforms are still going on.
Okay.
But it's the same thing. You have humans running the system. Now, they've changed some laws. A lot of the procedure in Lagos State has been changed, I mean, about 2-3 times already. Trying to, when we're talking about reforms, we're looking at, look, anybody that comes to court, justice delayed, we say is justice denied. If in the old days, a case could take, if the parties decide to go as high as the Supreme Court, it could take 20 years. And then you have the litigants, they've died off, their children have been substituted, and it goes on and on like that. Okay. Now, it starts from the high courts, or sometimes even the magistrate courts. Now, when it starts from the high court, and you can't get judgment within 6 months, a year tops, there's a problem.
Okay.
Lagos State is looking at that and making it easier, but there are still problems, even in Lagos State. Even though we do what is called front loading, for example, you're supposed to file a lot of your pleadings, your evidence, and then you come to court and you can even adopt the exhibits if they're documentary, and then you don't even have to do what we call examination in chief. It's just cross-examination we'll do now. But we even have stenographers. So the judges don't have to take notes, all to make it faster. But we still have judges taking notes.
Okay.
We still have judges, don't let me say wasting time. You get what I'm saying? So when all this goes on, the reforms are there. The foundation is being laid. But the people to operate it, there has to be a lot of training and retraining and training and retraining for us to get it right. So if Lagos State can, if Nigeria can copy Lagos State, I think we'll make a lot of progress in that area.
Okay, you know what they say about change sometimes being very uncomfortable, so they will have to be carried along. Well, a group Center of the Rule of Law, Equity and Justice, they did issue a statement in Abuja calling on the NJC not to intimidate judges with its reforms. Now, the group warned that the planned action of the NJC, if not handled properly, was capable of affecting the morale of judges in the country. Now, do you think that the group's statement is counterproductive to the overall objectives of the reforms?
No, I don't think so. there has to be caution. Because what is happening now is this. You have a judgment from a judge. If you are not satisfied, you should go on appeal.
Yeah.
But what is happening now is you are not satisfied, you write a petition to the JCN.
Okay.
And allege all sorts of things.
And then she has the final...
And then she has to set up a committee, a panel.
Okay.
Somebody has to look into it. Most of the time what they'll say is maybe there's been some inducement, you haven't behaved the way you should. Now this can lead to a situation in which judges are afraid.
Okay.
And when a judge is afraid, he's not likely to do the right thing. It's not all judges that are corrupt. There's no doubt about that. We have fine jurists who...
judges.
But now what you must understand again is the society. If you're not happy with a judgment, go on appeal. A situation in which rather than go on appeal, you keep writing petitions against the judge. Some lawyers are very good at intimidating judges. Immediately they see that this is not likely to go their way, they write even to the CJ alleging that the judge cannot be partial, so they want the case transferred.
Okay.
And it goes on and on like that. That's not going to help with the administration of justice. Let's follow the law the way it is.
All right, very quickly, in few sentences. Now, how best do you think that these reforms can be sustained without intimidation or without anyone feeling intimidated in these quarters? How best can they be sustained? Very quickly.
Let's start with the society. When you have a case, it's not just the judge. You have the litigants who are Nigerians, you have the lawyers who are Nigerians, then you have a judge. So if the litigants are corrupt and the lawyers are corrupt, then the judge is in trouble. We have to start this not from the judges, but from society itself. Let's have some people who have been engaged in corruption tried and punished. That's where it starts from, not from the judges. Let's build a society that has zero tolerance for corruption. Now, when that foundation is laid, then a judge trying to be corrupt. In other countries, you don't find things like this. It's very rare. But when you look at the countries, you see that there's zero tolerance for corruption in those countries. So let's go that route, not starting from the top and talking about judges being corrupt and all that, because a judge can't bribe himself. Someone has to bribe.
To offer the bribe.
The judge, you see. So if nobody is offering a bribe, then the judge can't say, well, I want something. It's difficult for him to behave like that. So that's the best way to start. And then you can sustain it.
Okay. All right. So in conclusion, it's very obvious that it will have to start from society. What we see happening in the judiciary sector is a reflection of the larger society, and then logically that means that society will have to purge itself of corruption first before it can get to the judges. Thank you very, very much for coming. I have been talking with Adeni Odunsi, legal practitioner and consultant and a public policy analyst as well, and we did look at strengthening Nigeria's judiciary reforms, and it is a process. From what we're seeing, we are very well on our way, and with everyone contributing, being part of this, we might very well be on our way to a reformed judicial sector. Thank you very much for being part of today's discussion. It's been absolutely delightful having you on the program. Let's do this again tomorrow, same time.